my RV's braking saga continues. Although this is actually a small thing. RV manufacturers don't think. So, as you guys can see, I have a fender flare missing right here. So as you guys know, when your RV's going on the road, all this stuff just kind of flaps. Take a look at these screws right here. You see how these screws don't have a washer behind them? Well, over time, as they do this wiggle dance, they start to crack. See that? And unfortunately, you have to replace it. Now, I wanted you guys to know something. These fender flares are like $150 a piece. And the other issue is, when you buy these new fender flares, the nail holes that they have already drilled don't even line up for some reason. So I have to figure out how I want to put the new ones back on. That way they fit and I don't have any issues with clearance, obviously. So when you go to put the fender flare up against the RV, it's not going to be long enough. But I'm assuming when you make your cut, it should give you enough clearance, because obviously you don't need it to make contact on both sides. I guess there's going to be a little bit of a difference in the size of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I'm going to go ahead and put it up against the RV. And then before I do that, let me just show you what you're going to have to do. Now, if you're going to need new nail holes, you're going to have to get some self-tapping screws. Now, they do give them to you, but some of mine are kind of worn and they've seen better days. So I did buy some new screws, but they're not the same, so they're not self-tapping, but they have the black heads on them. And I did buy some washers, so you're gonna really want to get these. If you're getting a brand new RV, I strongly recommend, assuming you have plastic fender flares, if they don't already put the washers behind these screw heads, I promise you they're gonna eat through this plastic over time. Once these things sit in the sun, once they sit in the cold, and over time, just going down the road, they just get really brittle, deteriorate. And so you're going to want to make sure you have like these washers. I might even put some tape behind the back of them too, just to give them a little bit more like security, I guess. I might just put like a little bit of tape on each one, you know, just to kind of allow it to hold a little bit more secure. But here is the part number. It says small Cougar fender black. And this was the size that was recommended for my RV. So again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up against the RV, and then I'm going to screw a hole in, and then I'll just check to make sure it's nice and straight. So to make sure that this job goes as planned, I am going to use a 1 16th drill bit here, just to kind of get the hole started for the screws. And before I cut the plastic, I wanted to go ahead and just nail it in, then I'll make my markings to cut it. There it is. I only have a couple of nails in there, but you probably can't tell from here, but it's too short. And I don't really care. Unfortunately, I doubled and tripled checked with the manufacturer. I said, is this the right one? So what I'm gonna do is when I cut this, I'm gonna make sure I leave some space. That way I can just bring this piece down here, and maybe, just maybe, it might work. Almost forgot, you're going to need a hacksaw. This should be good enough. The blade on this should be perfect for cutting plastic. I don't want it to be too sharp on the edges, and if it is, I may sand it down, but I'll show you guys just some footage of the cut too, to show you how well it cuts, or if you may need to do something else. But this is what my RV dealership recommended me, so that's what I'm going to use. Alrighty, so here is what I was talking about. So you see right here, see how this is pretty much cracked? So when those nails sit on this plastic over time going down the road, you can see that it just gets brittle. And this is a really good example. The nail went right through. I did put some tape on here, just as like an experiment. And as you guys can see, it did not work well. So Unfortunately, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have to use washers. That way that you have a nice contact on the back of this plastic. Alrighty, so I just added 2 nails just to see where I'm gonna make my cut at. So I definitely want it to hit a nail in this side of the slide out, because this is really secure. There are some brackets out back too. You can see one there, and then there's another one back there. This little silver metal brackets that you can nail into. I'm gonna make my cut probably about right there. I don't want to make it too far over, because some of this is going to be on this siding over here. So as long as I have just enough on the edge here, that's all I really need. So I'll make my mark and then I'll start cutting this, okay? Can you hold the other side? Mm-hmm. There you go.
In half.
Alright, so pretty good cut actually. Nice and clean. I just needed my son to hold the other side of it for me. But it did make a nice cut. So let's go ahead and put it up against the RV and see how it looks. And just like that, it's all done. So for the most part, all I did was, when I made my cut, I did make a pilot hole where I wanted to be at, and yeah, it came out pretty good actually, the cut. And all I did was eyeball it. But one thing you have to see, let me show you on the other side real quickly. So this metal bracket is what helps this plastic fender flare to be secure, and luckily I was able to drill into the plastic and find the hole perfectly. Now this does move around a little bit, it is screwed in at the top. However, on this side, if you guys can see it, I had to drill a small hole into this bracket, because the nail hole for the other hole did not line up to it. So I just used this drill bit right here. I can't remember what size it was. It probably was, I think this was I believe it was a 1/8. All in all, this one's done. All I gotta do is just put the small one on this side. So I gotta put my steps up, and this one should be pretty easy. All right, so as you guys can see, it looks like it's still off by about 1 inch or so, but if you look at the caulk here, you can see like the size of it. But it should be fine, because once the slide comes in, it will pretty much line up correctly, and that's probably why I thought earlier it wasn't gonna, you know, be the right size, because of how it looked against the RV before I cut it. But nevertheless, I got it on there, and it's not gonna have a problem anymore. I think it's gonna be a little bit better, and having these washers right here, this should definitely, you know, help with the rigidity of this too. So let's go ahead and knock out the other side. On this side, this is the more complicated one, because I have 2 slide outs. I was looking at this, I was like, do I even need fender flares? Because this is a lot of headache for really nothing. But behind the fender flare, when they cut this aluminum siding, it looks really bad. So I figured I'll go ahead and put these fender flares up, and as you can see, I still will have a gap, but luckily all I have to do is just cut this piece off here, and I can kind of center this to make it look a little nicer. But if you're buying a new RV, I say this one time and one time only, be sure to put washers behind these screws. Here's the part number for, I think there's what, 5 in there? No, there's 4. There's 4 black flat washers, number 8. I got these from Lowe's. Hillman is the maker of them. I got them in the drawer, and I'm telling you, this is the dumbest project that you will ever have to do. This RV is only 4 years old this year, and I've had to replace this. But again, I do full time and I do travel a lot in this thing. This thing has like 12 or 13 or 14,000 miles somewhere in there. So only thing I can tell you is make sure you do this early on. That way you don't have to deal with this. But I'll show you guys the finished project, and then that'll pretty much end this video. Alrighty, so there's 2 takeaways from this video. I won't put it all on the manufacturer. Now I will say If you can find aluminum fender flares, that would be the best option for you. The second thing I would say is, if you're washing your RV, because I wash mine probably once a quarter, in that ballpark, I think that when I wash too, I probably could be putting a little bit more pressure, so I won't blame it all on the manufacturer. I'll take some responsibility too. But the aluminum fender flares is what I would do next. If this happens again, which I doubt it will, I will 100% get aluminum siding, or I might just do my own aftermarket thing, because truthfully, you know, I think that these washers will definitely help, because these screws are not that big, and so over time it just kind of goes into that small little hole and then it just pretty much cracks. But I think this will definitely fix my problem, and yeah, I'm definitely happy with what it looks like now. I have new fender flares, and hopefully for the rest of the time I have this RV, I don't have to deal with this. But on that note, thanks again for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon.